Hello and welcome back. In the last lecture we finally got Webpack configured so we can compile and bundle up all our code and run our application. But there are still a few things we need to sort out with our build process. For a start, we are currently loading index.html from the source folder, and it has a reference to ..dist index.html. What we really want is to generate index.html in the dist folder, because our dist folder should contain everything we need to run our application. So we can simply copy this index.html file from source to dist as part of our build, but there's a nice Webpack plugin that can do some additional things like automatically insert the right script tags into our HTML. Let's go and install that plugin. Let's run npm install --save-dev html-webpack-plugin, and the current version is 2.17.0. After npm has finished, we should have it as a dev dependency in our package.json, and we can now use this plugin in our Webpack configuration file. First of all, we need to import it because it's a separate package, so we require html-webpack-plugin, and we assign it to an html-webpack-plugin variable because what this module exports is a class that we can instantiate using the new keyword. Now, in our configuration object, we can add a plugins property that is an array, and here we can create a new instance of html-webpack-plugin passing an object that contains some options. In our case, we can pass a template and set it to source index.html. So the plugin will read our index.html file from the source folder, add the script tags to it, and generate an index.html in the dist folder. Now, since the plugin takes care of adding the script tags for us, we don't need this line in our index.html anymore. Right, let's see if this works. In our terminal, let's remove the dist folder first, and then do npm run build. This will generate the JavaScript bundle as usual, but this time it also emitted an index.html. So let's see what it looks like. In the dist folder, we have this generated index.html that is pretty much the same as the one we have in source, except that the plugin added this script tag here. And as you can see, it added it just before the closing body tag, which is exactly what we want. So now we can load this index.html in our browser from dist instead of source, and it still works. Good. So at this point, what we generate into the dist folder is self-contained. We could copy this folder to a server somewhere and run it from there without all the rest of the stuff that we only need for development. However, what we're generating at the moment is not really optimized for production. Like our bundle is 2 megabytes, that is pretty big. So let's add a separate script to our package.json for building for production. We can just duplicate the existing build line, but call this one build::prod, and the simplest option to enable minification and other optimizations with Webpack is to pass the -p flag, where P stands for production. You can do more fine-tuned optimizations by adding more configuration to the Webpack config.js, but let's keep things simple. So now from our terminal, we can clean the dist folder first and then type npm run build::prod, and Webpack will not just create a bundle like before, but also do some optimizations like running the code through uglify.js. That's a tool that does minification and obfuscation, so it takes a little bit longer than a normal build. It also shows a bunch of warnings whenever it encounters strange things in the code, like unused variables or conditions that are always false. It's usually not a problem, but we should test our application carefully to make sure everything still works, of course. Anyway, if we scroll up, we can see that the bundle size is now down to 700 odd kilobytes compared to 2 megabytes for a normal build. So that's definitely better. It's still not exactly tiny, especially for an application that doesn't do much, but consider that we are including a bunch of different libraries like polyfills, and if we compress this file with gzip, we'll end up with around 180 kilobytes, so that's what the browser would need to download. That's probably okay for many applications, but you can do more optimizations if you need to. Now let's make sure it still works though. Let's refresh the page and yep, all good. Right, we now have a separate build for production. That was another one of the requirements we set up at the start of this section for our project workflow. Something we're still missing is being able to develop our app locally and have it reload automatically at every change. Thankfully, that's very easy to do using the webpack-dev-server. That's something we need to install as a separate package, so let's run npm install save dev webpack-dev-server version 1.14.1 at the time of this recording. So we now have the webpack-dev-server in our dev dependencies, and we can add another script to this file. Let's call it serve, and this will just run webpack-dev-server. We can pass the -- progress option like for Webpack, and we can use -- inline to get some live reload functionality. There are actually different options to do live reload with the webpack-dev-server, but inline is probably the simplest way. It will inject some JavaScript code into our page. Anyway, with this we can now go to our terminal and just type npm run serve, and we'll start a local web server on port 8080 by default. The dev server does the same thing as Webpack, that is, generate a bundle with all our code. However, it keeps the bundle in memory, so when we change a file, it should reload pretty quickly. So let's see if this works. Let's open a new tab with localhost port 8080, and that's our app working. Let's open the Chrome Developer Tools so we can see the console as well. Now, if we go and modify something in our app component, let's change the heading to say My App with Webpack, save it, and there you go. It reloads automatically. Let's add some more exclamation marks, save, and it does reload pretty quickly. That's one of the best things about Webpack. So we have a local development server that supports live reload, and that's another box ticked in our list of requirements. Let's stop here for this lecture. In the next lecture, we'll see how to enable production mode so we can get rid of that message in the console, but we only want to do that for production builds, so we'll see how to define different variables depending on the build environment. I'll see you later.